And I remember hearing a great line from Dwayne Wade, who has really been an NBA champion, an Olympic champion. So here's a guy that's been through it all, done it all, seen it all, won it all. And even for him, it comes to an end, and then he has the rest of his life to live.
One shot, now the future is yours. Go! Yeah, I was building on the lecture. Verses coming daily under pressure. Working on the plot and the scheme. The true style trademark is at the edge.
We spend a lot of time in sports talking about performance, who's ranked, who's next, who's winning. But not nearly enough time talking about formation, how athletes are shaped as people way before the pressure, the spotlight, or the labels arrive. Today's guest has coached basketball at its highest levels, college and the NBA, but chose to devote his life's work to young kids, using basketball as a tool to teach character, discipline, and purpose, long before athletes ever have to face life without the jersey. Brett Gunning is the founder of On the Right Path, a nonprofit built on the belief that sports are a vehicle for life development, not the destination. So Brett, you've lived inside elite basketball environments most people only get to see from the outside. But instead of staying there, you made a very intentional shift towards nonprofit work with young kids. What moment was it that you realized coaching at its highest levels wasn't where you were meant to stay?
That's a great question. I think, there was always kind of this underlying stream flowing through me where I kind of felt that inner voice from God, just saying, look, I'm letting you see all of this. I'm letting you see all the different situations that I was fortunate to be a part of at the college level or at the NBA level. Mm-hmm. I always just felt this underlying stream that it was for another purpose, and I don't think it's necessarily one or the other. I think my dream has always been to be a part of both. But I think this season of my life has been a period where I've been able to hit pause on the coaching side of it, to create and build what we've built, understanding that the winning and the losing, there's value to them. But the bigger point is God gives each one of us like unique passions. And our job is to kind of use those passions to serve other people. So for me, it's been the game of basketball, to take that and try to impact younger kids at the beginning of their journey. And that's all we're trying to do is use the game to guide youth on the right path.
Completely resonate with that because, like I said, you and I, we have similar passions. And so I love hearing the response to that. I'm actually curious, what did you start noticing about athletes that made you think, hey, maybe we're starting these conversations too late?
It really hit me when I got to the NBA level. And I felt like, wow, these are the best of the best. Mm-hmm. And I started to think about like, what is it that separates the guys that make it from the guys that don't? Why is it that a guy can have a 15-year career and then another guy has a 1-year career? He's in the NBA and then he's gone. And the more I looked into it, what I saw is obviously there's the basketball side of it, right? Like if you don't have the skills, it's not even a conversation. But once there's the skills, then what is it? And what kept hitting me was there's the life skill side of it. If you're not coachable or teachable, meaning your parent gets on you and you can't understand that they're just trying to help me out, and then obviously to the basketball side, where if you can't understand that when a coach gets on you, their only motive is to help you get better, it's going to be really hard to reach your potential if you're not coachable. So when I saw different players have long journeys, short journeys, and I looked at like, okay, what's the separator? It came back to me, the life skill side. And what God kind of kept putting on my spirit is, not that you can't change a 25-year-old with millions of dollars or a 30-year-old with millions of dollars. But to me, if you don't learn these things early on, it's much harder to learn them later on. Doesn't mean you can't, but it's much harder. So that's what led to the beginning of the journey. Guide youth on the right path at the beginning of their journeys. So when they get to this point, they don't have to be told at the age of 25, look, if you want to be in the NBA for 10 years, just listen. They already know that. Like they already know, they were rooted in that.
That's good. It's really, really hard to break habits, right? Than it is to especially teach habits at a younger age. That leads me to wondering how different is the work of shaping kids compared to developing elite level players?
What I'm finding, and the pretty cool thing is I have 3 kids, 10, 9, and 6. So they're in that age group of who my organization is built to really impact. My kids are kind of right around in that world. And so it's really been helpful for me to witness it up close and, what can they handle at a certain age, or what is too much? And to answer your question is I think at a young age, I say before they start to lose their mind, they actually listen to whatever you tell them to do. So I find it to be pretty exciting to say, cool, while I'm trying to guide them on the right path, they're still at a point where they're guidable, you know? So I don't want to say necessarily that it's easy to work with young kids, but I do think they're still at an age where they eat out of your palm. If my dad tells me to do something, there is no option other than doing it. They don't realize, like, as you get older, like, no, you actually have a choice. I always use the example of, like, and this is a horrible thing to talk about, but we had an incident a couple months ago where 2 kids were home from college, and it was around the holidays, and they were speeding, and they were drinking, and they both got killed. And I remember thinking, like, there's no way that those 2 kids got in the car and said, like, I want to die on the way home, right? But it's not having the life skill component rooted in them to say, I can't get in the car right now, or I've got to call my parents, or I've got to call Uber. How do you get kids to the point where they don't get in the car, right? Or they don't try drugs for the first time? You have to get it rooted in them very early.
And to your point, it's the small things that you hear, whether it's from your parents or adults around you as a kid, that just sticks with you forever.
Yeah.
For me as a kid, I know my dad hated the smell of cigarettes, right? So I steered clear away from cigarettes my whole life, or any smoking in general, right? So that's a really, really good point. Something that immediately resonated with me, Brett, is that you and I, we see sports the same way, as a vehicle for life, not necessarily an identity to cling to. And you work at the front end of that journey. So let's talk about how you use the game itself. You often say that basketball is a vehicle, not the destination. How do you teach that to kids who just want to hoop?
It's interesting. I'm going to tie in a story that I think will answer the question best. I was at my 8-year-old's. He was 8-year-old last year, and I was at his basketball game, and there was 10 seconds to go in the game. They were down 1. And he's the point guard. They gave him the ball, and he's dribbling up the court, and I'm getting excited. Like, I just want him to hit the game winner for him. Like, I don't care, right? It's an 8-year-old basketball game, and overall in the grand scheme, you compare that to a Rockets-Laker game. But I was excited for him. I was like, man, I just want him to hit the game winner for him. Mm-hmm. So the clock's winding down, 5, 4, 3, and he gets in the lane, and he's about to shoot, and I'm like, oh my God, he's gonna hit it. And he releases the ball, and he missed the shot. And I remember, like, literally, like, just flipping the switch in my mind right away to say, like, thank God he missed the shot, because I'm gonna be able to teach him so much more by him missing the shot than if he made the shot, right? So after the game, he's devastated. He's all upset. I'm consoling him, and then I'm driving him on the way home, and I'm basically explaining to him, like, look, you're going to be in that position a lot of times in your life. I said, and you're going to make a lot of those shots, but you have to understand that you're going to miss some, and it's like, it's okay. Number one, it's okay, because there's the embarrassment. There's the, my friends are going to laugh, I missed the shot, or they're mad at me that I missed the shot. It's like, number one, it's okay. Number two, you're going to be in that spot again, and you're going to make that shot. And when you make that shot and everybody's hugging you, you're going to want all that. You're going to want that praise. So when you miss it, you got to be able to take it too. I was giving him the advice more so based on, like, hey, next month, next year, years. Right. Anyway, long story short, fast forward, he had a game the next week. It was the last game of the season. Sure enough, he's literally in the same spot again. And he hits the game winner, and it's crazy. And he gets in the car after. He's like, Dad, how did you know it was going to happen? I was like, I didn't know it was going to happen the next game. But anyway, I say all that to say, overall, sports, as you know, from being a former player, just gives you so many opportunities to teach kids lessons on teamwork and resilience and discipline and working hard and having a good attitude. I mean, it's endless. It's literally endless. The number of lessons you can teach kids through sports. So that's what I've enjoyed most.
That's great. Because you have young children and you work with a lot of kids at young ages, how do you find yourself separating effort and character from outcome and praise?
Great question. It's funny. I saw a great clip where it was actually Shane Battier, who obviously played at Duke, and I got to coach him in the NBA with the Rockets. He was being interviewed, and he was talking. He was giving a statistic that 70% of kids quit playing sports by the age of 13, and he said, and the number one reason is the ride home. And I was like, oh man, that hit me right in the gut, because we all have that inner competitiveness and we want to get on our kids and Shane, he finished the point by saying, there's only one thing you should say to your kids after a game. And that's, I love watching you play. And I tell that story to say, I think playing at a professional level is like winning the lottery. Even playing at a high level college is like hitting the lottery. I mean, realistically, right? So the reality is the most important thing is that our kids know we just love watching them play. We love being there with them. And for me personally, my mindset about the game is more like, what kind of spirit do you have? What kind of attitude do you play with? What kind of energy do you play with? So I try to talk to my kids all the time about, hey, great job getting other guys the ball, or one of my sons, and I love this I never told him to do this. Like he literally, every time one of his buddies scores, he like runs over to the kid and gives, like he has a great spirit for the game. So I think it's important that we talk to them about those kinds of things and not like, hey, you won. Well, okay, you won, but you had a terrible attitude. You didn't pass and you didn't play hard. Right. So, but we're going to say like you won the game. So I always try to say to my kids, it's not about the winning and losing. It's number one, I love watching you play. And then number two, like I loved your spirit. I love the way you cheered your buddies on.
That's good. Yeah, that's good. And to circle back to the Shane Battier comment, I also coach youth basketball, typically middle school age. And we tell the parents all the time, like, your job is to be the pizza and ice cream guy, right? Like after the game, it doesn't matter how well they did or how bad they did. It's, hey, just pizza and ice cream, right? Be the person that they can feel comfort with. Because, we're going to coach them and we're going to tell them where they went wrong or things of that nature. So they don't need you piling on. So that's a good little anecdote there by Shane Battier. How do you balance skill development with character, especially in underserved communities where sports sometimes can feel like the only way out?
The very interesting thing that I have found in doing it is, and you know this from being a player, we use the game to teach the life skill, right? But the more you improve with the life skill, you get better as a player. And I'll use this as an example. As I built our curriculum and we started to get videos, so we have 12 life skills. And I did not do this on purpose. What I did is I listened to thousands of interviews. So like literally the last 5 years, all I've done is build this. We have over 1,600 literally individual clips of Steph Curry talking about being coachable or Michael Jordan talking about competitiveness. So I would I'd hear a clip. I'd say, okay, I'm going to put that in the bucket over here for humility. Oh, I'm going to put this in the bucket over here for being competitive. So when it was all said and done, Stephen Curry is in 10 of the 12 buckets of just ridiculous quotes. And so what I'm saying, I didn't pick Steph Curry and then pick I literally picked the life skills that I thought matter the most. And then I sought out, okay, can I get clips from players? I'm saying all that to say the poster child for what we're doing is Steph Curry, meaning a top 10 player in the history of the game that is humble, coachable, disciplined, has a great attitude, is resilient, competitive, is a leader, is confident. It's just like he's the poster child. So it's like, how can we teach kids at a young age to basically be like Steph Curry?
So one thing that clearly sets On the Right Path apart, it's the faith. Faith is not an add-on for you, it's foundational. Because On the Right Path integrates values and faith in its curriculum. Why was that a non-negotiable for you?
Because God, he gave it all to me. So number one, the journey, right? I was blessed to have a 26-year career. My first 14 years was with Jay Wright, who winds up going on becoming a Hall of Fame coach. I was literally with Jay Wright from day one of his career. Then I get to the NBA, and my first 2 years in the NBA are with Rick Adelman, who gets inducted into the Hall of Fame the same year as Jay Wright. So literally my first 16 years are with Hall of Fame coaches. Then I get a journey with Kevin McHale, one of the greatest players of all time, Hall of Famer. Then I get to spend time with JB Bickerstaff, who's now the coach of the Detroit Pistons, a great coach. I work for Javorn, who's one of the greatest people I've ever been around. And then I finished my run with Mike D'Antoni. So I when you say, why was it a non-negotiable? It's like, well, why me? Why did I get that journey? I have come to a place of peace to say, God blessed me with that journey to see all the things he let me see. Then he gave me all the wisdom, to put this all together. Like a big part of my day or each day is just to pray, to say like, God, just give me the wisdom for this. And he's given it to me. So it's all him. There's no real option to say, well, we could kind of sort of do it. This is what it is. And I understand it may not be for everyone. There's the story in the Bible, I think, where Jesus talks about he goes to a town and they're not really receptive. And he talks about like shaking the dust off your sandals and going to the next town. It's like, I'm not trying to throw this on anybody. We're not trying to be someone's parent. We're just trying to help guide kids on the right path.
When, the crowd is gone and the lights are off, what values do you think matter most?
I haven't really been asked that question before, but the thing that comes right to my mind, it starts with the love part. And then there is the discipline side of it, but it's all rooted in that word, that we not everybody's always comfortable talking about, but it is the most important word of all.
And it's funny because you talked about humility a couple of minutes ago, and then you talk about love, and you talk about setting screens and just these different acts, right? And one of my favorite players is Steph Curry, right? And I apologize because I know you were with the Rockets when he a couple of times, but when you talk about these different things, you see players like that, and you wonder like, hey, how can you play with so much joy, whether you're making 12 threes or going 1 for 12, right? And it's just being rooted in those principles. And I think that's really, really big. I do want to talk about the book because obviously that's what brought us here, right? And it feels like the front door to everything else that you've built. Why start with a children's book?
Again, all God. I'm sitting on my couch. It's COVID. We had the NBA season had gotten put on hold. I'm sitting at home with my kids. I'm reading a book to one of my sons. At that time, he was 3. And I remember, I'll never forget, I shut the book and I said, wow, that was an amazing book about a dinosaur. And it literally just taught my son how to be a better friend at the park. And God just dropped a nugget in my spirit of, I want you to do the same thing using the game of basketball. And I was like, oh, that's easy. So that's what led to kind of this idea of the book series. It takes place in New York City. It's a 6-book series. And the first 5 books are one day. Book 1 is Monday at camp. Book 2 is Tuesday. Book 3 is Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then the last book is book 6. And that's basically Saturday, the day after camp ended. And the kids kind of are reflecting on what they learned at camp. But the point is we use the book series as an opportunity to tell a story of kids are at camp, their first basketball camp together, and their coach impacts them with basically a thought of the day. And that thought is tied into basketball camp, but we then tie it into their daily life. So the first book, again, talks about thinking of others, right? Being unselfish within the game of basketball. And then on the way home, the kids are walking home from the camp, and they stop at a pizzeria right there on the streets of New York City. And they're sitting around eating pizza, and there happens to be at the very end one slice left. And one of the kids says to one of the other kids, "Hey, do you want the last piece?" And then one of the other kids is like, "Yeah, remember Coach Pete told us today to think about others before yourself." So we try to use the game of basketball to introduce a very simple life skill to a child: think of others before yourself. So that's kind of the story behind the book series. And again, I'd rather be early on these life skills than late.
Well, Brett, you've obviously built something thoughtful and intentional here. The question now becomes reach. Who are your key partners in terms of scaling this work? Any schools, organizations, community groups?
At this point, we're more so in the city of Houston, and we have partnered with local schools and community centers where we do a lot of stuff. We have just partnered with a winter basketball league here where there's over 60 middle school teams from various public schools throughout the city of Houston. And so our prayer is just like, God, you know our passion, you know what we're trying to do. You just let us know what, where, when, and we're gonna try to do that.
As we close, I'm curious to know what success looks like for On the Right Path over the next 5 or 10 years from now.
Ooh, great question. I think we really live in the day-to-day of, God, who can we serve today through the game of basketball? I understand your question, but I think we really don't look at it in that way at all. Just who can we serve today? And wherever God is going to take that, if 5 years from now, we're impacting a couple individuals each day, rerouting the course of someone's life through the game of basketball, that looks like success to us, And if it's a lot more than that, then we'll deal with that when that time comes. But I like the simplicity of, just who can we serve today through the game of basketball.
Obviously, the jersey comes off at some point, whether it's 18, 38. What do you hope that the game has already given the people that you're serving?
I go back to the passion that God gives to each one of us. One of the great things for me, we were Game 7 to go to the NBA Finals. I was a heartbeat away from being in the NBA Finals, and it was amazing. I have almost just as much joy going to my 8-year-old's game. Sports is meant for joy, just to have fun, to be with your buddies and just have fun. I think for me, the thought would be just have kids understand that you get to play sports for a certain part of your life. Dwayne Wade's a guy who has really been through it all, seen it all. I mean, he's got a statue up in front of an arena for the rest of time, and yet his mom always used to tell him that basketball is for a moment. So here's a guy that's been through it all, done it all, seen it all, won it all, and even for him, it comes to an end, and then he has the rest of his life to live. So I think enjoy it, have fun, and then try to learn as much as you can through the game that's going to help you throughout the rest of your life.
Brett, I appreciate that. And I also appreciate the intentionality behind the work that you're doing. And obviously the decision to start early, because I believe that's huge. It matters. Thanks for sharing your story and your mission. A lot of great work that you're doing over there. So we appreciate it for sure.
Yeah, it's one all, one shot, now the future is yours.